All right. Welcome in to the podcast. Let some people get in here first. I'll cut this up on the audio. We're going to be at 0 for a minute. This is what we do though. We don't our lives. This is what we do. We just hit go live, baby. What else is there?
We're late bloomers.
We're just gonna get the show started. I don't really care. All right. Welcome into Hail to the podcast. Maize Blue Reviews Insider show every Thursday. Coming to you a little bit late, a little bit of a Thursday evening type of show, but our caveat to that is that we're going live. Usually this is a pre-recorded show you guys have to listen to on the back end, but we will give it to you live tonight. So joined by me is Josh Henschke. As always, I'm Brandon Justice. We are the Maize Blue Review. He is the publisher. I am the senior editor. And we've got a great crew as well over there with Libby covering recruiting and basketball, Davis Mosley doing basketball recruiting, and Trevor McHugh being the Swiss Army knife that he is. Brock Heilig, same thing. Stephen Osentoski on the film cut-ups. Dennis Fithian with the Daily Show. It's quite the squad. So come check us out at michigan.rivals.com. We've got a nice special going right now. You guys use code UMB2B and you get to try us out for free until basketball season. So give us a shout. Come join us on the Den. Join the exclusive community. You get intel, but on top of that, you meet a ton of diehard Michigan fans through the message board, and you guys get to chop it up. And, there's people on there who have been friends for years. I know some of the people who post on there say they've been friends since they joined in 03, 04, or whatever it may be. So a lot of fun. Let's get into today's show. Obviously, what we're talking about is Michigan versus Maryland. It's really the first game of the season is what it feels like. Those first three games were duds. Michigan outscored their opponents by like 1 million. It was like 141 or something to a very little amount. So finally, right, kind of feels like this is the first game of the year, honestly. And so Michigan hosts Maryland at noon on Saturday. Homecoming, Big Ten opener, big noon kickoff on Fox. I'm sure Urban Meyer will get a mouthful from the fans. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a fun Saturday. Josh, what do you think about, I guess, just the narrative surrounding this game and what we're going to learn about Michigan, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to learn a lot. I mean, it's, we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the schedule now. We can finally put the, the non-conference talk behind us. And, I don't think, whatever Michigan does on Saturday is really the end all be all and what the trajectory is going to be. I mean, if they obviously if they lose and they lose badly, then yeah, we're going to be talking about some issues here. But yeah, I think we're going to be able to learn a lot. There's Maryland is pretty good offensively. I mean, and that's kind of been the general consensus when kind of thinking about Maryland over the last couple of years. A really good offense, but a porous defense. And it kind of looks to be about the same this year as well. I mean, not much has really changed. I mean, they might have improved a little bit on defense, but still giving up a ton of points, still giving up a ton of yards. It's just, it's going to be interesting. I think the defense is going to be tested here. And the special, we're going to find out quite a bit, but at the same time, we're not going to find out quite a bit. It's a very intriguing thing. It's very interesting. I think it's going to be a good test for the offense as well. I mean, cause you got to get, you got to get your guys involved. You got to play a full game. I mean, you don't want to play a full game, but these guys got to get some snaps together. These guys got to get chemistry going, especially on the offensive line. But yeah, it's a really interesting one that, I don't know if we'll fully get an identity of what Michigan is moving forward, but I think we'll start to see kind of the general makings of what it's going to be. And we'll see what happens. I think, when ultimately, if Michigan ends up winning this game, people are still going to point to the schedule, and people are still going to point to, Michigan not having any adversity. But, in a perfect world, Maryland would give Michigan some adversity, but enough to where you're not worried about it, enough to where, like, oh man, the Maryland gave Michigan some trouble in the early going there, but by the end they ran away with it. I think that in a perfect world, you'd like to see them get tested a little bit, but at the same time, kind of, walk away comfortably. I think in a perfect world, you'd want to see that. So, yeah, I mean, I know people have been calling for, an upset watch for Maryland, just because, and people using the low hanging fruit of, the argument of, oh, Michigan hasn't played anyone. Well, we'll find out on Saturday. But, I find it very hard to see a situation where Michigan loses this game. I mean, let's just be honest. I'll be honest there. It's just, I don't see that situation. So we'll see. I mean, they'll undoubtedly be tested. I mean, this is their first true test of the year. And yeah, we'll go from there.
We got some questions coming in, quite a few actually, and we will get to some of these later because we are going to dive into a full preview of this game that will answer some of your questions anyway. But for the time being, we will talk about just one of these real quick. So last year's game, Michigan blocked a punt and then returned a kickoff for a touchdown. A.J. Henning also avoided disaster on a muffed punt. That's from Shadyville 03. Yeah, so we'll talk about A.J. Henning for a moment before we dive into everything. I mean, that was quite the performance on Saturday. I get it, right? Bad competition, but returning a punt and a kickoff for a touchdown in your career is pretty remarkable, as Jim Harbaugh said a few times this week. So, yeah, I think A.J. Henning is a difference maker. Shadyville, I know you asked about special teams too. We'll dive into that in the preview. But I do think special teams for Michigan continues to be exactly what we've always said it is, and it's really a step above everywhere else in the country. There's just an obvious emphasis on it here in comparison to elsewhere, I would say. And that pays dividends for them because I think Caden Colazar, if you guys don't know who that is, it's one of the special teams aces. He was the one who blocked the punt last week. I know a lot of diehards absolutely know who Caden is, but I'm sure there's some people out there who might not recognize the name right away. So in case you don't know, he said earlier this week and then earlier this season as well, and in some media press conferences, just how much Michigan knows in comparison to other programs, just how much the coaches know, how much they teach things that aren't taught elsewhere. One thing is most college schools go from a pro punt in Michigan, from a spread punt, and Michigan goes from the pro punt. That's a big difference. So I agree with you. Just answering your question there, Shady. So, all right, we are previewing Michigan, Maryland now. Let's look at some numbers. Everyone knows me. I'm a nerd. That's what I do. So we'll start with penalties. I think this is like the number one thing to start with. It doesn't have to do with offense, doesn't have to do with defense, but it's arguably the biggest glaring difference between these two teams. And that's the fact that Michigan is number one in Power 5 in penalties, meaning they have the least amount of penalties in the Power 5, whereas Maryland has the most in Power 5. It doesn't really get much different than that. I think they're 118th overall, and that makes them like second maybe in the Power 5. But all the same, it's a night and day contrast between those two. And we know how much that matters, especially come Big Ten play. And how often does a team who out-penalizes a team by 6 or 7 win? Maryland's averaging over 10 penalties a game. Michigan is averaging under 3. So you're talking about a differential of 7. And if you think about it, most of those penalties are going to be, even if we say none of them are 15 yards, we'll say they're all 7 yards. It's still 70 free yards to a team that's averaging 55 points a game and doesn't need any help. And that's Maryland's a team. Any team that beats Michigan with less talent than them is going to have to play extremely disciplined. And if you don't, Michigan is going to hurt you because they play so disciplined. It would be different if Michigan walked into here with like the 30 to 35th least penalized team. But they're the least penalized good team because there's no good group of 5 teams this year, really. But they're the only team in the Power 5 that's under 3. So that, again, they've played nobody. I get it. Like, we can always go to that caveat. I understand. But the point is to play disciplined against those teams is hard because you're a free bird at that point. Right? It's easy to not play disciplined against a team you're clearly going to destroy, which they did. So that, to me, is the most telling night and day difference between these two teams, and I think going to have the biggest impact. But, Josh, I'll let you talk about the scoring offenses and just a preview of what Michigan's offense looks like and how you expect it to attack Maryland's back. And they've got the highest scoring offense in the country. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum this week. They're averaging over 50 a game. They're doing it at will. They've played nobody. We know all of those things. What don't we know about Michigan's offense, and what do you think we're going to find out on Saturday?
Mm-hmm. Well, before I get there, I do want to show this comment here by Shadyville, and I think it's really kind of poignant to what we were just talking about. Maryland will likely beat themselves before they beat Michigan, and that's 100% correct. Maryland is going to be penalized if their trends continue, and they've had a couple of questionable, really bad turnovers, especially against SMU too. So I know Michigan's turnover luck hasn't been great as of late, but I mean, Maryland is a team that has shown a propensity to cough up the football. So there we go. It's another chance that, Maryland could very well beat themselves before they do end up beating Michigan single-handedly. So now getting back to the offense, I think, when we're looking at the offense as a whole, again, and I hate this, I hate the argument. I hate it. But it's just, we got to look at competition in the first 3 games, right? And this game will tell us a lot. If Michigan scores another 50 points against Maryland, then you can kind of start to think, okay, well, maybe this offense is onto something here. Maybe they can actually score the ball at will. I mean, they showed a little bit towards the end of last year. That high power offense, that ability to score on multiple consecutive drives last year. So yeah, I mean, there's a high chance. There's a high chance that, just because Maryland's defense is not good, that Michigan's going to put up points, and, JJ McCarthy could very well get let loose on Saturday. And, he's got the weapons to do it. Roman Wilson looks locked in. Ronnie Bell's been used a ton. Cornelius Johnson is used a ton. There's some other guys that are kind of waiting their turn to get out there. What were you saying? Well, Brandon is muted and frozen. So anyway, I will continue on with my point. But Roman has a chance to really kind of cement himself as this guy's really kind of cementing himself as a key cog to this offense. And obviously we've got Blake Corum in there as well that we can talk about as someone that will obviously be a factor. I mean, he's always going to be there. And, we're hearing good things about Donovan Edwards possibly playing too. I mean, he may or may not play a huge role, but there's a chance that he'll at least be suited up on Saturday. So that'll give, Maryland something to think about, something to fear, kind of an extra added wrinkle there. But I mean, the scoring offense, has been impressive through 3 weeks. And can they keep it going? I believe so. I don't think it's if they score like 35 points, it's like, oh man, the sky's falling. This team is not good offensively. I mean, I think, anything above 30 points and a win is big for the offense. And we just gotta see some positive plays here. I mean, it's, we got to see the offensive line put together some consecutive good series. They've looked pretty, and again, it could be a bunch of things. I mean, they've had injuries across the offensive line. They haven't played 4 full quarters. They haven't really, they haven't built that chemistry yet. So, a lot of things will be put to the test, and this is a great opportunity for JJ to kind of show that, hey, I'm the guy. So, we'll see. I think we're in a situation here where, I think the passing game is going to be used, and not just, these screen pass that Michigan screened UConn to death last week. I mean, they'll use them because it works, and their wide receiver blocking is just so darn good that they can get away with it. But I personally would like to see more downfield throws. So we'll see. We talk about the non-conference schedule so much, and I hate talking about it, and I hate bringing up that point. But again, now we're finally at the point where we can kind of brush that aside moving forward. And, I think Saturday is a good first barometer, at least maybe we can kind of establish a floor. I don't know if we can establish a ceiling because it's too early in the year to even talk about ceilings, but I'm pretty sure we can establish a floor here on Saturday. So what that floor looks like, we'll find out. But, if Michigan can play some clean football, mistake-free football, and just JJ continues to do what JJ's been doing, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, if he does more, that's even better. But, if he can show command of this offense and show that, hey, this isn't just some fluky stuff we've done the last 3 weeks, I think, they're really – Michigan might be onto something here offensively.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Great. You're good. Great. Welcome back.
Yeah, I had some microphone issues, which seems to be a pattern. It's a great microphone. It just loves to unplug, I suppose. I guess I went the whole first chapter of that show sounding like I was in 2002, so that's on me. But we're back, and we're sounding crisper this time around. Yeah, Michigan's offense, the ceiling is the roof. We've been saying that as long as they have J.J. McCarthy under center.
Yeah.
But again, there's just so many things to find out. As far as Maryland's scoring defense and where they're at, I mean, it's a juicy matchup, as you mentioned, for J.J. McCarthy. I mean, they have their passing defense is in the triple digits. They rank 100th.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn low for the Power 5, considering there's only 30 teams ahead of them. How many of them are Group 5? I did not check, but I would have to imagine quite a few, right? So Maryland, as far as the standard of being in the Power 5 goes, their passing defense against 3 teams that, I mean, I guess SMU is okay, but Charlotte, who was the first game? Can't remember off the top of my head. Buffalo, real bad, right? So, it's bad. Buffalo is a run-heavy offense, by the way. So to be
and we've lost Brandon again. We have lost him again. But anyway, to continue Brandon's point, Buffalo was a run heavy offense, and they like to establish the run. So a small sample size there, but I think SMU, the numbers that SMU put up on Maryland, who SMU should have beat them. So to kind of to compare SMU to Michigan is not exactly fair, but at the same time, there's tangible evidence, right? There's something tangible to look at, say, hey, this is a problem. This is a continued trend. And, Maryland's given up a ton of offensive yards. I mean, they've given up a ton of passing yards. So this is a ripe opportunity for JJ to really stamp himself as, we know he's the guy, but, to stamp himself as, hey, we're not here. We're not going to back down. We are the Big Ten champions. We are the reigning Big Ten champions, and we're going to smack you in the mouth, and you can't do anything to stop us. And I think that's kind of what the identity of the team kind of picked up last year, heading towards the latter half of last year. We're going to run it down your throat, and, we're going to come at you defensively, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And, for a good portion of that season outside of the Georgia game, they did just that. So I think that identity is kind of something that they're looking for, and, they're in the beginning stages of, and, Maryland is a great opportunity to do that. And, it's a ripe opportunity for JJ to really put up some numbers this week.
All right, I think I'm good again. I don't know what's going on, but I think it's a cord problem, so I adjusted my cord. So I hope everyone at home knows I am adapting and adjusting to my environment. All right, no adversity. S&P Plus, that's next on our list. We're taking a look at where S&P, if you guys don't know what S&P Plus is, Bill Connolly runs it on ESPN. It's just a power ranking system. It's my favorite computer system to look at. It takes a bunch of different subject matters, from recruiting the transfer portal to make their preseason. And then when the season comes, they're basing it off of last year on top of this year's product so far. I think it's the most true, closest to true power ranking system in college football. Last year, this is my best reference for it. I always bring it up. Last year, S&P Plus had Michigan top 5 before anybody, and by like a long stretch. And they had them top 10 in week 2, and that was after the Washington win. and they were 6th. And I think after that game in the AP, they were like 23rd or 22nd. So they like to get ahead of the game. I mean, they were really high on Texas and Tennessee to start the year, and so far Tennessee and Texas have impressed us. So as far as S&P Plus is concerned, Michigan is the 5th overall team. They actually dropped a spot under or behind Oklahoma this week, but their offense ranks 6th and their defense ranks 10th. And there's only 2 teams in the country right now that are more balanced on offense and defense than Michigan, and that is Alabama and Georgia. They have a smaller differential. Ohio State's differential is 1-16. I'm sure having the best offense in college football can compensate for having the 16th best defense, but all the same, there is a far lesser differential for Michigan than there is for Ohio State. And then in Maryland's department, they've got number 39 overall. The offense is 25th and the defense is 56th. And that tells us 2 things. It's the offense is not as good as we thought it was going to be so far, and the defense has been shockingly, despite the passing numbers, better than we thought it was going to be. Maryland's defense in the preseason was like 89 or 90th, I believe, right around that mark by S&P Plus, whereas their offense was a top 10. So it's kind of shocking to see after 3 pretty easy games for Maryland to only be at 25 and 56. And not only are they at 25 and 56 in S&P Plus, like if you look at the numbers, everything's pretty average for them in middle of the pack offensively as far as the Power 5 is concerned. And then defensively, they're lower end, but they're like 3rd tier rather than the 5th tier, which is where we thought they were going to be. And which one of those is a byproduct of their non-conference is kind of the same question you can ask about if Michigan is good, right? I mean, it's a very similar ask. So in analyzing it all, it's Maryland, I don't think is as good as we thought they were going to be. And when I say we, I mean me, because I was the only person that thought Maryland was going to be good this year. And I kind of have been riding that train since like January. So it sucks that I'm sitting here admitting that they're bad and I was a terrible forecaster there. But here we are. Maryland, I just don't think it's as good as I guess what we're seeing narrative-wise. Somebody asked about the spread on the comments. I'll bring that up right now because we're going to shift right into that. So Jack Redmond asked about the spread. If you'd hold back on betting the point spread, I won't go right into like betting advice or anything, but I will give you some analysis on what the spread is and what that looks like and why I think Maryland might not be as good as we think they are because of that. So there's a lot of like reasons to come up with an evidence where we're like, okay, hey, Maryland might not be so good. Like we can look at the numbers like I just mentioned, but Vegas has been all over Michigan too. And the opening markets were like all over from 15 to 16.5. It was mostly like the 16 mark. And then in 24 hours, it was pretty universally at 20 or at 17.5. So it rose quite a bit in the first 24 hours. Now there was like a little bit of sharp movement that bought it at the 17.5 point, got it back down to 16.5 for a couple of days. But as of right now, it's back at 17. And that 17 is a consensus among all boards. So Michigan might rope out some more. They might tuck back in. But either way, when Vegas set the line at 15 to 16, it got bet out about 1.5 more. And it continues to look like a Michigan type of bet. So there is like this, like I said, like there's a very small amount of sharp movement that's coming in anytime the line hits like 17.5. So I think it's going to kind of stay steady at 17. But 92% of the bets and 82% of the money is on Michigan. So like not only is the public betting Michigan, like everybody's betting Michigan. And the only ones who aren't, they're just what they call contrarian bettors, meaning no matter what the bet is, they're going to they're going to be on the other side. So if it's 92% of Michigan, it does not matter the analysis behind the game. Their system is to bet against the public, and they're going to do it 30 times in a day. And it's going to work out more times than it doesn't, honestly. But I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to buy a 0.5 point movement on that. So I would honestly take Michigan. I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I don't think Maryland, based on these numbers, is all that good. I mean, rushing offense is the only thing where they really can hang with Michigan. They're 41st. Michigan is 15th. But the only difference there is that Michigan has 231 and Maryland has 190. And like that's a 40-yard difference. Michigan's played far worse teams, so we'll just call it even. But outside of that, I mean, everything else is extremely lopsided from the penalties to the scoring offense. I mean, where Maryland should be better than Michigan is scoring offense. Like especially, or not, maybe not better, but they should be comparable. And I guess at 1-18, they sort of are. But Michigan's averaging over 50. Maryland is hanging out at 40. And there's nothing wrong with scoring 40 points a game. I just thought this Maryland offense was going to be historically potent. You know, like I really thought they were going to put up 50 plus a game, and they're not. And this was the easiest part of their schedule. So I don't know if I can buy into them eventually doing that right now. Still think Talia is the most accurate quarterback in the country. Still think Raheem Jarrett's the best slot guy in the country. I just don't know what else is going to beat Michigan. Their offensive line is good, not great. I think there might be some space for some offense for Maryland, but really where this whole thing falls off the wheels is that Michigan is going to throw for a cajillion yards if they want to, because they can't cover the pass to save their lives. And when Michigan has a quarterback like J.J. McCarthy, which they haven't in years past or in like the past 20 years, it's easy to buy into that. So Michigan's going to be a team that covers with JJ at quarterback. That's where I'm at with it. I think that he makes them a covering team. And so I'm on the cover right now. As far as point spread goes and as far as the preview of the game goes, like I just don't see Maryland being able to compete with them in so many facets that it's impossible for me to think that this is going to be an upset.
Yeah, I mean, and really when you think about it, I mean, 16 points isn't all that much. I mean, you're talking about, 2 touchdowns and a field goal or whatever combination you want to use. I mean, that's not, 2-3 score game. I mean, that's not really out of the realm of possibility. I mean, my prediction was Michigan was going to win 38-17. And, I think that's extremely doable. And I think, Michigan put up 50 on Maryland last year. So, and that's with, a different-ish offense and with Cade McNamara at quarterback. But, I don't see a situation where Michigan couldn't do that again. I mean, let me preface this by saying if they don't score 50 points, I'm going to be throwing my hands up in the air and freaking out saying, oh no, this offense is so bad. It's not what I thought it was. That's not the case. But I think this is a type of matchup that plays so well into Michigan's hands that they can roll this thing if things go right. And they're at home this year. And, again, you got to look at who Maryland's head coach is. It's Mike Locksley. I mean, he's not a very good coach. And I don't think he takes advantage of his talent that he has. And they're going to make dumb mistakes. They're going to turn the ball over. The defense is going to be bad. I mean, I feel like we say this about Maryland every single year. Oh, this is a year that Maryland turns it around. This is the year that Maryland will give someone trouble. And Maryland very well might give someone trouble. But to give Michigan trouble, I would be highly, highly concerned if that was the case. I just don't think Maryland has the talent to hang with them. And, I just feel like we say this every year and it's just always the same stuff and Michigan rolls and, Maryland goes on its own way. It's just, I find it a very hard situation to foresee Michigan losing this game unless they just totally just go away from what has worked the last 3 weeks and, self-inflicted mistakes or, knock on wood, injuries were to happen. It's tough. And yeah, it's tough for me to see a situation where Michigan wins close in single digits. I think I'm sticking with Michigan going with the over. And, I would not be surprised to see another blowout happen. It's just until Maryland proves it and shows that, they're not the same self-inflicted wounds program that they have been since, the Brady Hoke days of Michigan, where they got that one win in 2018 or whatever, or not 2018, whatever year it was that they won. It's a hard sell for me. And well, I mean, ultimately we'll see on Saturday, but it's just a very, very hard sell to kind of even think about Maryland squeaking this one out, and especially at Michigan Stadium. It's just a very hard sell.
Yeah, it is homecoming. That's kind of one thing people aren't really discussing. Like it's going to be one of the most raucous environments. Maybe not raucous. There's probably not a lot of older alumni in there providing to the crowd noise. We'll talk more about raucous environments later in the episode if you're into that. But with my prediction, I know, what was your score again?
38-17.
38-17. All right. So I guess this is my final verdict on this game, away from the spread, just how I think this game's going to go. And I wrote this in our stat prediction that's coming out tomorrow. So if you haven't read that already, or you can't, Well, you might have read it twice. So
hacked into our system if you've read it.
Look, it's 9:15. All right. Yeah, I think we're going to learn. I wrote this, but I think we're going to learn more about Michigan in 60 minutes against Maryland than we did in the 180 of the non-conference schedule, whether Maryland's all that good or not. I think we're going to learn more about them in 60 minutes than all three of those games we watch, or whatever you want to call them. Scrimmages is what they are to me. Talia is good, man. Like, I've been on the Talia train for a while. I think if Talia was at Michigan, even, like, he would be a 40 touchdown kind of guy. Like, he's that accurate. He just desperately needs production. And I think he finally has a bit of it this year, but Michigan, that's where I kind of see this game shaping up. All right. Is that I think Maryland's either going to see success early or they're going to have a stretch of success offensively. I don't know if that's going to happen in the middle part of the game, the end of the game, or the beginning of the game. Because I don't know if their script's going to work, or I don't know if the halftime, I don't know. Something's going to work for Maryland, though, offensively. I do believe that because they do have a certain bit of advantage here because Rakeem Jarrett, look, guys, I know we've seen a ton out of Mike Sanders still, and we're really high on him, and we like Mike Sanders still. He's still got a lot to prove in the coverage game. I mean, he's obviously can hit. He can obviously blitz off the edge. He can play that sort of Dax Hill role where he's finishing through tackles and providing something to the run game. He's looked good so far in coverage for the most part, but there has been a couple of plays where we're like, all right, a better team and a better quarterback and a better receiver probably makes that play with the coverage that he had on him. So Rakeem Jarrett, who I think is arguably the best slot guy in the country versus Sanders still, I do have some concerns. Like, I don't think either of those guys are going to be the more successful one. I think they're going to have a nice battle on Saturday. I think Rakeem's going to get some catches. I think Mike's going to get some catches. I think that's how those kinds of things go. Apart from that, I think Maryland's offensive line is going to challenge Michigan's defensive rush probably more than the next couple of games will. Maryland's offensive front's pretty experienced, and like they weren't good in the past, but now those same kids have been there playing that position for like 2 more years, and now all of a sudden they're like an experienced, pretty decent O-line. And if there's one thing to look for in an O-line being good, it's literally experience. If those guys have played for more than one season, they're probably good. As long as they're at a Power 5 school with like a reputable situation. Now, if it's like a new O-line coach or they transferred in, like that's different. Think about Colorado State. I mean, Colorado State has 4 guys in that line who have started for 3 or 4 years, but they've all started in different places. Those guys have to play together. Mm-hmm. We've seen that lately with Olu, right? Like Olu's played good for the most part, but the O-line has needed to mesh because they're not used to playing next to Olu and they're not used to playing next to Trente. Like there's some new things to adjust to there.
El Hadi too.
So there's a whole lot going on in the injuries they've had to deal with because Carson's been out and Ryan Hayes has been out. And even Keegan has had to exit a couple of games. So it's been, one of those things. Maryland, I think these guys have played together. They'll give good protection, but really, again, like I'm still skeptical on Michigan's pass rush. Like I still like Colorado, Jesse Minter, Michigan's defensive coordinator, said it best. Colorado State has given up so many sacks since the Michigan game that it's hard to even value that game anymore for them.
Yeah.
And in these last 2 games, it's been quick release stuff. Talia Tagovailoa, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football ever. You think he's not going to throw some quick release stuff that's going to work? Like that dude can put a dart inside of a peephole. Like I'm pretty sure they're going to run a lot of that stuff. And so for me, I think Maryland's going to score. I just think that Michigan's going to score a lot more. And so my final is 52-27. And so I think it's going to go way over. I think Michigan's going to cover. But I think it's going to be, at the very least, an extremely fun game to watch and way better than 58-0 or 59-0, whatever these last few have been. And you're going to see a first-team offense for 3.5 quarters. How the game flow goes, I'm not sure, dude. I think Michigan is comfortable throughout. I just think that Maryland puts up 27 one way or another. They might walk into the second half with 17. Michigan, let's say Michigan's up like 31-17.5. I think that's completely realistic. And then in the second half, they just speedboat ahead of them, and at some point Maryland gets a garbage type touchdown, and all of a sudden that's 52-27 right there, right? And a field goal, of course. But that's how I see it going. I just think Maryland will see success, but their passing defense is so bad, and JJ is one of the 10 to 15 best quarterbacks in the country. As soon as he stepped in, I don't care what anybody says, we've all watched quarterback play, and I don't need to see him throw against UConn or USC to know he's good. We saw him throw against Georgia as a true freshman, right? So that's where I'm at with the game. We will segue into the night game, which you've got some information on, so I'll relay that to you.
Yeah, so interesting, not necessarily breaking news, but I heard from one of my, I hate saying this, one of my sources today. I kind of were just in the conversation of night games, and the topic of Michigan's next night game came up, and I hate this. I absolutely hate this. But it's definitely trending towards the direction of Michigan State being the night game this year. Not Penn State. Penn State's heading more towards a big noon kickoff on Fox. That's the Maize Out game. That's the game where they're honoring Lloyd Carr with the naming of the tunnel and all that stuff. That's not getting the night game treatment. It's going to be Michigan State. And, a bunch of people I've talked with inside the program, inside the athletic department, even in Ann Arbor itself, have been told to prepare for a night game. So it's not 100% concrete, set in stone. But if I had to put if I had bullet to my head and I were forced to give an answer today, it's Michigan's. It's going to be Michigan State to be the night game, and that's going to be interesting. The last time Michigan played a night game against Michigan State, the heavens opened up, and Michigan lost a close one to Michigan State. A game like so many we've seen before, a game Michigan should have won. So that's revisionist history, and that's no need to do that. But a great opportunity for Michigan to beat up on Mel Tucker on prime time to kind of get that slide out of the way, the 0-2 slide. So Michigan cannot afford to go 0-3 against Mel Tucker, especially this year. If Michigan State continues to play like they have been, there's no living that one down if Mel Tucker goes 0-3 against Michigan, or 3-0 against Michigan. So from a personal standpoint and just a non chaos environment, I would have preferred a Penn State game. Because you've got all the things going for it, right? You got the Maize Out. Obviously the Lloyd Carr honoring is a late addition to the thing that was announced today. But yeah, I would have much preferred Penn State over Michigan State. I guess the only good thing Michigan's got going for it is it doesn't sell beer in the in the concourse, because that would just make this whole thing nuts. Just Ann Arbor on a Michigan State game day is already nuts in itself. East Lansing is nuts in itself on a Michigan game day. To couple that at a night game where there's thousands of people drinking heavily all day, just all day, and then you have to wait out for a game, it's going to be just a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare, but again, whatever. We can't make the rules here. We're just bystanders. So, as of today, Michigan State is going to be the night game, and let's have some fun with it.
Let's ride.
Yeah,
if we got home from the Hawaii rain delay at 4 a.m., that means we're getting home from the Michigan State day after tomorrow purge apocalypse type game at like 6 a.m. So that's great. In fact, I'm really happy that they made the biggest game a night game.
Yeah, you got to look at Michigan's. You got to look at Michigan's schedule, though. The home slate is not good.
It's rough. They had to, Ohio State tells itself every year.
You have to put lipstick. You have to put lipstick on a pig somehow, and I guess this is the lipstick with Michigan State. So, it is what it is. Yeah, Penn State is fine, but I guess if you're really looking for a marquee matchup,
baby, I love noons. I love noon kickoff.
I love me a good noon kick too.
There's nothing like big noon kickoff.
Yeah, big noon kickoff on Fox.
Get me there at noon. Get me home at no later than 7, and I love it because look, everyone's like, "Oh, you guys don't work 9 to 5s."
Yeah,
sir. The noon game is like an 8 to 7. Night game is like 6 to 6.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And we get home and and everything. But no, I love big noon kickoff. First of all, big noon kickoff's operation, I think overall is awesome. Like I'd say, I'm not like huge on Joel Klatt and Gus. Like I don't think they're like the greatest guys of all time, but they're good. And they certainly have like a voice that's recognizable to a network, and Of course, I love noon for my own selfish reasons, but at the same time, I thoroughly believe there's nothing like college football at noon on a Saturday, personally. So, all right, let's wrap it up. We're going to do like a little, I was trying to mix this into the show every time. We're kind of overtime, but I was going to do a stat of the week every week. And this was interesting, I thought. So if you combine Michigan's 3 non-conference opponents and their average scores per game, they would combine for 34.6 points combined, all 3. The best of the 3 scoring offenses is Hawaii. Hawaii had averages 12.3 points per game, which is 118th in the country.
Terrible.
Maryland's points per game alone is 40. So the 3 teams Michigan faced, and mind you, these 3 teams obviously faced more than just Michigan. Those 3 teams combined for 34.6 points. So if you took all 3 of those rosters and put them into one, they would still only score 34 points a game. Miserable. And so that just goes to show how bad Michigan's non-conference was. And I want to point out that it is so unbelievable that Michigan scheduled 3 future non-conference opponents and all 3 fired their head coach in the same year. And so when they played Michigan, all 3 were at like their all-time low as programs. Maybe not UConn. I think they're better than they were in the past, honestly. But either way, they're all in terrible spots. And I understand scheduling UConn typically doesn't work out, but like Hawaii has teams every now and then. Colorado State, they've had some good teams, right? So it is unbelievable for that to all happen simultaneously at the same time. So again, Michigan's going to get a lot of hate for this for a long time, but as long as they take care of their business and either run the table or something close to that, people will forget. Nobody remembers September and November, my friends. It's college football. Hail to the podcast. That's Josh. I'm Brandon. Michigan.rivals.com. It's right there below the screen. UMB2B, free through basketball season. There's literally nowhere else to be during Michigan football than the Den. Intel, you get to chop it up with a bunch of diehard fans. There's community events. There's all kinds of things that we do. We did giveaways this season. It's just awesome. It's like the best place to be if you like talking ball with everybody. Men, women, we have it all. It's a great place to be. And then the Intel, I mean, it's second to none. You just found out about the night game. You can find out about so much more. Come join us, michigan.rivals.com, UMB2B, free until basketball season. I almost could not say basketball. All right. Follow us on Twitter at Michigan Rivals, Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, Maize Blue Review. And then you can follow Josh at Josh Henschke, me at Brandon Justice, and we will talk to you as far as HTTP goes next Thursday. But Dennis Fithian will have his live show tomorrow. He'll have his live show after the game on Saturday. And then we will have Rise to the Victors coming out to you on Monday morning. And when we start the week, we will be previewing Iowa, where I will be going for the first time in my life. I am so excited.
It's pretty cool. I like Iowa. Iowa City is very underrated as a college town. And the stadium's cool. You'll enjoy it. It's good. It's a good time.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys then. Enjoy your weekend, and make sure you join Dennis Fithian on the live show after the game on Saturday. Take it easy.